Selamat siang semuanya. No worries, this is the only Indonesian I prepared for today. The talk will be English. And today the talk is about community. So don't be afraid, move to the front, there's plenty of space, make yourselves comfortable, because we're going to be talking about something a bit different today. The last 2 days, has been a lot about interesting conversations around different things like context engineering, from automation, all these different tools, right? And there was some very lively discussions about, what's the future of how we're doing different things, right? People are concerned, roles are merging, right? And what's the future for product as, people working in the field right now? So today we want to take a bit of a step back and talk about the orang-orang, the people here, right? And I want to invite everyone here to take a look at the current screen and scan the QR code, and maybe have a reflection about what is it your team is struggling with the most, right? The diagram I have on the screen is the evil build trap. This is a concept by Stephanie Liu, who's the CPO of Mingjie, a Switzerland-based group. And it's a very interesting one. The very first time I showed this diagram to a friend, she laughed and said, "Who drew a picture of my team?" Even with AI, there's problems that still exist, right? Because we don't work with AI alone. We're not robots, right? We work with different team members. So if you wouldn't mind, go on to slido.com and type in the number or scan the QR code, and let's maybe vote a little bit about what are the issues that's facing your team right now, and we can have a healthy conversation about some of these, right? Everything is a priority, right? We have 100 things that we need to launch. Infinite ideas, someone from the other team, ops, marketing, everyone in your team is coming up with a new idea and putting it out for you to plan into your roadmap, right? No time for research and ideas and data, right? We have no time, we need to launch next week, or we need to launch last week. It's a common thing that we all hear from our stakeholders, right? Low impact releases, we are working, till late nights, and we're not seeing results, right? Lack of trust. Sometimes it's about working with different teams. More ideas, someone's, we're almost, to the end of the sprint and someone's throwing in new ideas to that aspect. No time and focus, and therefore unclear strategy. So I just give everyone 10 to 20 seconds more to basically put in your votes. And then we can basically have a quick view of, what's the concern on everyone's mind. So there's no right or wrong, your answers are not recorded, I'm not going to be using your data so it can be truthful, and then we can maybe have a quick look. So they were just, always technology always being a problem, right? What's showing up? So the results are actually showing up quite clear now. Unclear strategy at 61%. Everything is a priority of 55%. We're looking at a livestock market right now for different kind of issues, right? More ideas midway. Oh, it's pushing very hard against focus and things. So, again, this is a nice snapshot of what what's on everyone's mind, right? Even as we think of AI, as we think of how do we work with our different teams, these are some of the issues that every team will face. And sometimes, not just asking, hey, what are the better tools for us? It's also thinking about how do you solve these problems for your teams? Because some of them could have different struggles where, hey, they're even struggling with team issues before even they can talk about AI. Or just not being aware of what's the larger picture that we're working towards. And that, in essence, is the difficulty of product, not just the direction, but how do you build a product community within your company that thrives, right? Because it's about the people. We are working with teams, and not just working in the tech itself. So to introduce myself again, my name is MJ. I head product design and propositions at Bolttech. Product design in that we make our platforms easier for users to use. Propositions are new ideas we bring to market. We basically help validate and bring them to for concept testing and basically bring them to market directly, right? And where do I work at? I've been with Bolttech for 5 years. Bolttech is the most international scaled insurance and protection ecosystem. And what we mean by this is a lot simpler than it sounds. We basically help connect the world to the right insurance at the right time. We are not an insurance company. We are basically a connector to different kind of systems. And I put it very simply, but it actually took us some time as a company to figure out how we wanted to do this, right? Because there are problems at different levels. For consumers, you and I, we are using our phones, you're using your cars, and we basically want to protect the things we love, right? Because, unexpected things happen. How do we make the products available to these users? Because we take it for granted, right? The world is ever changing. It's not just your car and house. Now your digital life is coming part in it. I'm sure all of you have come across scam calls and different kind of cyber threats and things, like your children might be exposed to different things online, right? For us, the consumer is where we basically try to match these unmet needs, and these are different in different markets. For our partners, this could be your telcos, this could be your banks, this could be different kind of distribution partners. We basically help them connect to consumers for these products that they're interested in without having to spend 1 to 2 years figuring out the insurance kind of regulations and different platforms they need to build. And underneath that, we connect to the insurers, basically to bring the products to your consumers. So you can think of us a little bit like electricity running through the room. We're connecting different pipes together. So I make it sound simple, but it's actually problems at different levels. And my team is actually relatively small compared to most other teams out there, right? Traditionally, you always thought of, what's the ratio of product managers to designers and to different team members, right? And as you can see, one of the challenges we face as a distributed team connecting basically the globe, we're solving problems at different scales. We are basically connected to 39 markets right now and growing. We started in Asia and move on to Europe and then US, and now we're actually expanding to Africa as well. So how can a team of 12, with a small footprint, small team, but I like to call ourselves small but with a large footprint, basically tackle some of these problems at scale? And the truth of this is, it's not just my team as a product design team helping with bridge all these conversations. We have different members of our organization working in different areas, whether this is ops, tech delivery, business, finance, leadership, and different areas, right? And we're just one small team. So the impact we bring is not just design. It's how do we bring people to talk about different problems, right? And basically solve for them. Because it's about alignment, it's about breaking down silos to basically solution for things together. So I want to roll back the clock a bit. Like I said, I've been with Bolttech for about 5.5 years now. And if we roll back to 2019, just before the pandemic, I'm literally, to set the scene, I'm at Clarke Quay in Singapore. I don't know if you've been there. It's basically like the restaurants and bars and things, right? It is 8 p.m. in Singapore. I'm being pulled into a Zoom call. And with who? An Australian product manager who's 2 hours ahead, and therefore it's at 10 p.m. We are talking to a developer in Porto. That's 12 p.m., just going to lunch for them. And the three of us are in a heated debate. And what's the debate over? Is whether we can pass 2 additional fields from system to system to make life easier for our consumers. So the product manager and myself, we were like, why do you want to make the user fill up it's the same item twice on 2 different platforms? And the engineer was basically saying, hey, if we squeeze this in, this isn't going to cause our project to delay by 2 weeks. So we have a disconnect there, right? And that's why I need to emphasize, even as a company that's grown and actually working across different teams, we face these same issues that we were talking about earlier, right? There are different issues, and even within different teams, you will face different challenges. And part of, really having the impact to deal with these is really figuring out how do you basically start building conversations across the company. So rather than saying, hey, this is the best and standard way to basically build a community, I want to share a little bit today, right? Using examples from the region where we worked on projects, the lessons we learned from trying to build the product community together. So I'd like to break it down into the kind of 3 aspects, right? And everyone probably, whether you're a founder, product owner, designer, and different members of the team, you basically start at different levels. And again, these lessons apply across the board. And I want to break it down into 3 kind of aspects today. Firstly, is starting. You have to start somewhere, right? Well, the challenges you kind of want to overcome. Then we go into scaling. And lastly, sustaining, that will hopefully be helpful for different teams at different maturities of your own product kind of life cycle. So starting, sometimes is the most difficult thing to do. There's so much uncertainty. You need to make so many decisions, right? So I've worked in product for close to 15 years across design, across different kind of roles. And I still come back to this view, this traditional 3-legged stool, as they call it, right? Of 3 different functions that you need to do. Because in my view, regardless of whether you're using AI or different kind of methods, right? the principle of this is still the same. In order to have a product that will work, right, you need something that enables and solves a problem. That is a tag. So, like even something as simple as a book. A book is a tag that helps store information, right? Same way, whether you're solving a dating app or you're a CRM, you're basically using a solution to solve for something. Next, you need experience, right? You need a way to deliver this to your kind of consumers, right? Whether this is a B2B consumer or B2C consumer, doesn't matter, right? Someone is probably interfacing with this. Unless you're only API business, but again, you still need some way to connect to that. And the last piece that's sometimes often very neglected when we start building out is also, what is the business aspect of this, right? Because we're not just building this for fun, right? Sure, in initial stage, you could be looking at user acquisition and other kind of growth metrics. But as you grow, you need to you basically run into the problem. If you can't figure out your path to profitability or understanding why users will pay for your product, you basically have no product. And the challenge is different for different companies, right? You will scale at different levels. Again, like I mentioned, in my organization, for example, UX is not like a 1-to-1 ratio or even a 1-to-10 ratio to some of these businesses, right? And that's fine, right? We all start small. No one has all 3 team members right from the start. But the important thing is to reflect then, especially with new tools and new kind of platforms that we are building out. If this is a gap in your team, you might not be able to solve it now, but how do you basically keep this in mind as you're developing your product? Because like I said, right, tech and UX without business is not going to work. Business and tech, but a horrible experience. You're not going to be able to scale at some point, right? So it's important to recognize it's fine that, hey, we don't have everything right now, but to keep these kind of metrics in mind as you're building out your team and basically figuring out how to improve your product. And being able to involve these people will really kind of give your product development approach a kind of more holistic aspect. Some other challenges, that teams kind of develop as they move along. A lot of teams don't have a problem with the what, right? You started a company, you know what space you're in. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's been 25 years since Agile was invented. It's about 24 years since concepts like the double diamond by the UK Design Council, discovery methods, right, were invented. Yes, we can update these methods, but we don't necessarily need to figure out, reinvent the wheel here, right? Where most teams actually have more challenges of is the why. We had a couple of really good talks earlier on what problems are you solving for and why, and who are you basically solving these for? If you're a D2C consumer, you cannot run away from talking to your users, right? Because you're selling to them. If you're working with B2B partners, you're selling to corporates. You need to talk to your business partners, right, to understand what problems are you solving for. There's no shortcut where AI can solve all this magically for you. AI can facilitate some of this collection and insights gathering, etc., right? But it's something that you as a team then need to figure out. Again, the playbook has already been invented. We don't need to reinvent that wheel. For us, it's maybe more of a measure of capturing that data in a way that the team can understand. The how is the one that usually no one has a problem with, right? I'm guessing quite a few of you probably would be PMP certified, Agile, Scrum, etc. So this is usually not the difficult part because you have a process, you kind of follow it. So the problem and trouble I've seen a lot of startups really struggle with is not any of these issues. People problem you can hire, processes you can define, right? And research methods, etc. You could even get a consultant to come in. The diagram I put up on the screen is by a paperback studio. They're based in South Dakota. But I really like how they basically encapsulated this idea of problem solving, right? In an ideal world, where we understand the problem, AI has kind of uncovered everything from us. We get from point A to point B, and we are done. We all get rich, retire in a Bali resort, and we are done, right? The truth of it is when you're developing a product, it's never that straight line, right? You might start with a direction, like this is nowhere I want to go. I have this group of users, I'm trying to solve a problem for them. But the truth is, when you're figuring that out, even having a roadmap that says, hey, I have things planned out for the next 4 quarters, doesn't guarantee that your team will get there. So the critical view, especially when you're just starting out, is really understanding that, hey, this is going to be a path for you. You're going to be working through different stages of this, right? You might get to a point and say, oh, we've had some user data and this is proven, right? But you might then hit the next point where, hey, I've hit this point, but I'm not actually, I'm still iterating and finding what is the next step for me. And having a courage as a team to look at this view, right, and having traceability to understand that, hey, if we went wrong, it's perfectly fine. We're going to go back to base assumptions again and rework there. And it's a tough realization for a lot of people to do. Once I sunk in the course, I don't want to go back, right? But if you don't capture this and think of this as a team, that's where you're going to run into a lot of issues. So to recap, for starting, start small, right? Start with a core team. You don't need every single member, but you need to bear in mind what strengths and weaknesses your team does have and find a way to basically overcome that challenge. There's a really good book called Just Enough Research. I like to extend that to just enough build and just enough validate as well, right? Just only researching and not turning that to a real thing. It's okay to agree on a working method. We don't need to reinvent the wheel all the time, right? With different frameworks. And we need to measure, to basically get to, hey, are we satisfied with the experiments that we did in the last step? Or do we need to still find our feet a little bit more? And the number one problem I see with a lot of startups is you start scaling once you start building, right? And you don't actually address the problem that you're trying to solve for. So don't scale until you find a measure of success. Okay? So once you solve a problem or two, basically to give, I think this is the part that I go a bit more into kind of the painful learnings that we had when we first started out in Asia market. Bolttech didn't start with 59 countries, right? We started with 1 or 2. And it's a challenge for us when we go into a new market and try to understand it. When we are breaking into Thailand and Indonesia and Hong Kong and different markets, obviously these markets have quite a different kind of demographic and preferences. In Asia, for example, a lot of us, once you pay for a service, you expect everything to be done for you, right? I've already paid, people should just fill in the form for me. So using an example of someone trying to raise a claim for, let's say, hey, I dropped my phone, I bought insurance, and I now want them to repair it, right? The same problem, when kind of framed correctly, can really help your team understand what are you actually trying to solve for and build the right mindset to adopt this. So the challenge we had in Indonesia specifically was, especially prior to pandemic, where again, people are so used to going to the store to get help for different things, right? The rates of someone trying to call in or visiting the store is so high, something like 70% or so. And this then led to the first kind of data input, right? Business is asking, wait, why are our partners asking, saying that everyone's trying to call in and visiting their stores, right? And on the other hand, you have a counter view, your customer experience team telling us, hey, why are you making it so difficult for people to fill up a simple form, right? So these are just two viewpoints. And when you start digging into the rabbit hole a bit deeper, a simple question like this can uncover a lot more truths, right? There are a lot of angles you can attack this from a user experience point of view. What's causing this drop-off? Are people just not wanting to use digital platforms at all? Or is that somewhere around user experience that we can try to improve? And you might get input from different teams as well, right? Your ops team could be saying, hey, we need incident details to be able to actually decide the eligibility, whether these claims can go through. Your data team might say something like, hey, we need the data to train the model for fraud cases. If you make this too easy for a consumer, everything goes through, you have no business, right? And that's where these conversations, different voices, right, is the spark of a community where we are trying to solve for the problem together, right? What is the problem we are trying to solve for? The outcome isn't that we want to make this easy for everyone, that you can just put in any answer you want and you submit that. There is a business or product kind of outcome here, right? How do we encourage completion rate online or satisfying some of the legal or other operational aspects that we need to fulfill? And if a very small squad, again, I make it sound like there are a lot of departments, but actually it was just 5 people getting together to actually discuss a problem, right? You start somewhere, right? And what we did when we got this input was we pulled together a quick squad, right, of different people. So, and we basically took the current flow to basically check, hey, what are issues, right? If you put this in front of consumers, what kind of feedback is coming through? Are the users having feedback about, is this being difficult to use? And you're getting direct input to what I was saying earlier. If you don't talk to your users, you don't know what's going on, right? People are complaining, hey, your word count is too high. I don't know what to describe. I dropped my phone, right? I can't give you any more than that. But us being able to put this input together, whether it was data from the completion rate and the user input, etc., in one place, really helped basically accelerate this conversation, right? Where we took a kind of decisions together as a team. What do we prioritize on fixing? What are things that we want to deal with to basically solve for this issue, right? And not just, decide to roll with it and not learn anything from this aspect. So the value my team brought wasn't the design aspect. This is easy. You could literally, put this into some AI tool and get it done in 5 minutes today, right, or even less. The value that we brought to this was in terms of the process, right? We started small. We started with a few core members putting together data. We basically chose to unblock visibility for different teams, right? This was at the start of the organization where we're still trying to find our feed for different tools and platforms that we want to use. We literally use an Excel that tracked who reported the problem, what was the problem, what was the discussion around this problem, what is the impact that we're actually making by solving this problem, and basically force that conversation to come together. So the tool is not the problem. We all love our Jiras and different tools that we put out there. There's so many these days. I'm sure there's an AI version that your team prefers, right? I think the key is really making sure this is available to your team and for them to be able to kind of grow from there. Because you can't solve a problem if people can't even access your document. And it's that mindset that we really put our effort into uncovering as we actually built out our teams. So I spent quite a fair bit of time on this. And again, every team is different. You won't solve it in the same order and things that we tackle with things, right? But it's initiatives like this where you really start to open up conversations within your team, right? Building trust, building visibility of data. I think someone earlier was saying, hey, they really literally made a chatbot for people to access data for your products. This really starts to remove some of these blocks and basically unblock your team to move towards a better direction. Okay? And it's only when you solve these problems at a certain level, then is it really worth considering scaling the process itself, right? Because if you scale too early, using a problematic process, right, where, hey, we build build fast and learn fast and end up not knowing where to go next, right? If you build on that shaky foundation, you're scaling problems, you're not scaling solutions. So when it comes to the next level of scaling, right, the important thing for us was this realization. This is a quote by Tony Robbins, one of the motivational coaches. The quality of your communication is the quality of your life. I'll let it sink in for a minute here. The quality of a communication is the quality of your life, right? It's been, 2 to 3 years since, all these AI tools for improving your communication, Gen AI, writing and different theses, right? On paper, all of us when communicating to our different teams, right, shouldn't have any issues being clear with our communications and communicating problems. But how many of us have that colleague who, whenever you ask them about something, they send you an AI, generated summary of something for you to read and go through? So the one I want to add to this is the quality of communication is the quality of your team. And this is a very important aspect because you need the team to be talking about important learnings. It's not just about talking in general, right? That is, part of office culture and everything. But you want people to be discussing issues, the issues that we brought up earlier in the earlier chat. And part of this facilitating this conversation is really how do you basically start building conversations across the company, right? For us, it started small. We started at the team level, learnings, right? People are trying out different things and we have a critique or different sessions so people can actually understand the process. From there, we scale this up, right? Departmental level sharings. Not just, hey, sharings for your own team that are working on the same product because you guys know what you're working on, right? But for example, have you ever considered getting your sales team to do a little bit of a pitch to the other teams to understand their process? Because you have a product, you need to know how to sell it. If you don't know how your other team is selling it, are you guys, kind of working together? So it was breaking apart of some of these silos, right? It's not something super common, maybe once every month or every 2 months, right? But it scales up into a conversation that's coming across the company that basically helps you talk about different issues. And at the next level, company-wide, this is where we celebrate our successes, right? We've tested, we learned, we actually built something out on the process. We actually give credit where credit is due, right? It's a showcase of what happened with this initiative. How did we get there? Not just the result itself, right? Getting people to share processes because it gets people interested in what your team is working on. And asking questions, you might get a whole new perspective when you actually chat with a legal team and other team members besides the product team you directly work on. So that for us is kind of a call to building that product community. Cannot be the product team only looking at product. You need your business people to take the feedback from your partners, right? You need your data team to give you the insights on different areas. So whatever forum you choose, choose something where, it's accessible. I almost call it open doors to the organization to really kind of unpack the conversation. And it sounds easy, but it's hard to do because, if it's a boring conversation where it's one way and it's not a conversation, people will stop coming. So for us, setting the expectation of what to share, setting the format for what kind of is useful for different teams, role models, how different teams actually talk about different topics, and actually invite feedback into the process as well. So again, once you have some measure of success, right, that's where you can start evolving your templates and tools. So for us, again, we didn't reinvent the wheel from the start. You can see some of these actually come from very similar formats that you have out there. You might already have a discovery process that's similar to a double diamond. You might already have frameworks for customer journey mapping or even more engagement models like Hook from NearAL, or even kind of different frameworks, right? That's where we start. Once we have the success, we start evolving this and actually making this relevant and more direct to our space. We work in B2B2C. For you, you could be a D2C company or B2B company. These are the ones where you as a team can discuss, right? What was insufficient about the previous framework and what do we need to build on, right? For everyone to agree and actually speak the same language. That when we say we are doing discovery, this is what we mean. And other interpretations can kind of flow from there. So this then sets, again, that team around testing and measuring, right? So again, there are so many decisions to be made. There are so many different data formats. It's not always just useful for everyone to just look at a AI format generated and expect everyone to read yours, right? Imagine you have 10 team members generating AI summaries for you to go through. We need to agree on what do we mean or what are we measuring, and getting someone to basically work on this, right, to kind of solidify and unify the way we talk about different topics. And this even goes out into prioritization, right? Because again, if you ask ops team what is the number one thing for them, I want to reduce operational overhead, right? If you ask user experience team, what do I want? I want to make it 100% completion, no user friction for users. If you ask your sales team or business team what they want 100% profit and they don't want anything else, right? We need a way to kind of agree on a framework to how we want to prioritize different initiatives and have an almost holistic way of looking across. So again, depending on your business, this is something that you need to work out with your team and basically agree, hey, how do we decide this goes forward? It's probably a blended mix of experience, impact the business, and basically whether it's scalable or not. So in short, as you scale, you're basically creating space for conversations. Otherwise, one team will always be building something and the other teams don't know about it, right? You want to create a language, a culture that everyone can understand, right? When we say, hey, whichever metric that we're all looking for, this is our North Star, this is what we're all driving towards. So everyone knows that when we are pushing something, we're measuring ourselves against the same goals. And making the data visible, right, is the number one, I think, thing, especially for people outside of data teams to understand. How do you get access to this to really build out the impact that you're building out? Okay? So that is, we started with, almost the how, getting a measure of success. We then went into how do we scale this across different teams, getting people to kind of talk the same way and basically building that aspect, right? And what's next after that? And this is the challenge that a lot of more mature companies do face, right? What's next? And so far, a lot of the initiatives we've been talking about are more relating to, is it working? More relating to bottom up. So it was myself, it was other members of my product team, our lead product manager, sometimes even our CRM team, raising the topic and basically being not afraid to speak up about certain issues that we want to solve as a team. But it's equally important as us. I think sure some of you are managers, founders, leaders in the room, right? To also come at this from the top-down angle. Are you rewarding your organization and members for the innovation and the extra work they are putting in? It's not easy to force ourselves, right, to learn a new AI tool or to try something out different because, hey, doing the normal way will probably get me better results, right? So as an organization, you basically, in my point of view, have two choices. Either you hire a different innovation team to deal with the problem altogether, or you find a way to make sure this is baked inside the way you kind of structure your teams. So at Bolttech, basically what we've been quite successful over the last 2 years as well is we started internal competitions.
But I think I'll deviate from the script. But
so these are hackathons, these are kind of open kind of format competitions where actually we invite different team members. And we force that users, basically different team members must come together. You cannot have a team of 5 UX users. You need a team of at least three people from 3 different departments to basically come together and put together a case study where our top leadership is actually there to judge, the business case itself. And this invites ideas, right? Where anybody can contribute. You could literally form a team with, your best friend or different colleague that you met in the organization to actually push out ideas. And these ideas are then given room to then be explored, right? When we actually go into innovation process, there's a dedicated team, whether it's AI or whichever different, extra help you need to turn the winning ideas into life. So this turnout for this has been really awesome, and it sparked a lot of conversations and thoughts, right? And being able to reward that, sometimes it doesn't have to be like a big prize or anything. Recognition of these voices where people dare to think of different ideas really helps accelerate the kind of culture that you want to build. And the other aspect of this is also, as a company, like for us, it's a bit different. For you, it will be slightly different as well, depending on how you actually work with our businesses, is we learn together with our partners and different people in our ecosystem. As we said, right, we are an ecosystem. We are not the experts in everything that we do. And we find partnerships in the areas there where we might actually need more help with. So whether this is something like a distribution, maybe we don't know telco customers, right? But we have partners that actually come to us and give us the other side, the other handshake in order for us to develop ideas and frameworks together, right? We understand the insurance part, we understand the tech part, but maybe someone actually understands, the way products are being distributed in the market and what customers actually want. Then we can work with them basically to kind of figure out what is the aspect that we can bring there. And it's taking some of the learnings that we have, right, the frameworks, discovery, and all these into our partners as well. And that's why we bring value to those conversations, right? So it's not just us, trying to innovate on our own. It's actually working together with them to basically figure out what works. And if you had told me, fresh grad out of university, that hey, one day I would be actually, leading workshops in the US, Thailand, Indonesia, and different places, right? I probably would have said, hey, you're crazy. But I think all these experiences and actually push you to think a little bit. Problem solving is very universal, right? You may be solving for a problem that's only in Indonesia right now, but I can tell you from experience, when we look into our platforms for Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, countries of a similar demographic and things, that's where you actually find that what the same skill set you use to identify the issues can easily work for these other markets as well. And having the courage to pitch this, to try and adapt this, to actually make your product ideas scale. And it's a very healthy conversation we have across where, again, you're bouncing off ideas, you're not just developing ideas on your own. And I go back to this diagram again, and I saw some of you quite laughed at this one, right? One of the toughest things for a company to do is admit that you're wrong, right? You have investor pressure, you have different kind of pressures working at you, you have deadlines to meet, KPIs and everything, right? But if the problem is wrong, the problem is wrong. By creating the culture of learning, by creating basic feedback mechanisms and ways for people to discuss topics, you sometimes realize that you need to go back to the root of problem solving itself. If something doesn't work right, whether it's, hey, the product is at the end of its life cycle, or it's no longer working, right? It's on you as a team, using everything that we kind of applied so far to try and basically figure out what is the next step for your team and what is the roadmap here, beyond just having a roadmap that says, hey, I'm going to build 10 features in the next quarter or whatever the metric is. And it's a tough conversation. It's one that needs to take in different inputs, right? Because any one team, whether you're user experience or business or data, right, cannot influence this on your own. As a team, you basically need to figure out this together and visualize this as a way where you decide, as an organization, a product community, is this a problem you're trying to solve for? And if not, right, what is the next path that we want to take, to scale us to the next big kind of concept? So with that, I leave you with these 3 closing thoughts, right? Start small, find success before you scale. When you scale it based on real learnings and processes. Don't go too high. And when you sustain, go bottom up as well as top down. With that, that's my time. Follow us on LinkedIn if you'd like to follow our journey, and I'll be around as well if anyone wants to chat about any different topics. So thank you for your time.